How do Bible-believing Christians explain natural disasters? This article is based on Genesis chapter 7, verses 7 to 24. Natural disasters are destructions not by man to vulnerable men, but additional suffering can sometimes result from the foolish acts of people. There are many examples in the Bible. Reading through Genesis, the flood is the first we encounter. The details are recorded in Genesis chapter 7 and verse 11 and Genesis 18 verse 22. So why did God flood the earth? Have a look at Genesis chapter 6 and verses 1 to 7. The world was wicked in God's sight, and he cleansed it of the sin. We read of that in Luke chapter 17 and verse 26, where Jesus says that the world around us will be in the same state when he returns. There are other examples in the Bible. Volcanoes. Genesis chapter 19, Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of sin. Disease. The 10 plagues of Egypt meant deliverance by God from their slavery. Earthquake. Korah, Dathan and Abiram die. The rebellion is crushed against God. Numbers 16. Famine. In the days of Ahab in the 1st of Kings chapter 16, when God brought about a drought of 2 years after Elijah prayed. So why then does God allow suffering? The Bible tells us that we inhabit a world scarred by consequence of Adam's disobedience. Genesis chapter 3. Now as a consequence, no one is immune from suffering. We are all frail, death-bound creatures, and no one is totally innocent themselves before God. Romans chapter 3 verse 23 for clarification. It's important to understand, however, the natural disasters are not necessarily the result of any particular sin. In Luke chapter 13 and verse 4, Jesus records the fact of the Tower of Siloam, when it fell and killed 18 people. It was not because that they were worse sinners than others, Jesus points out. Rather, Jesus says that those others who lived to hear the story should think differently about their lives and recognise their need for God's deliverance. But there are other reasons too. God uses the weather for his purpose. Job chapter 38 in verse 22. For example, the tsunami in Japan, and humans can do nothing to prevent it. He can try our faith, our trust in him. James chapter 1 verse 2. And Jesus suffered too. The 1st of Peter chapter 4 and the first 2 verses. In Job, we see an account of personal suffering. He lost everything, and God's answer was to demonstrate his creative power. Ultimately, everything was restored to him, Job that is, in Job chapter 42. Job came to understand that he may not always understand why God acts in the way he does, but to recognise that God knew best as the creator of all things. Luke 21 and verse 25 to 26 suggests natural disasters will herald the coming of the Lord, and Zechariah 14 and verses 1 to 6 is the knock-on effect of this. Does the Bible teach eternal suffering? No. Revelation 21 verses 1 to 4 and Isaiah 25 verse 8 give pictures of the future when suffering will be removed. In God's kingdom here on earth, the message of the Bible is clear. To escape the suffering of this life, from whatever cause, we need to think differently and turn our ways to God. Luke chapter 13 verses 4. Obedience to God's commands is essential for salvation. Romans chapter 15 verse 18 and Mark chapter 16 verses 14 to 16. This article was provided by Nicholas White, who meets with the Pershore Christadelphians, and was read by Art Courtenell. For more information on this or any other subject you find on our YouTube channel, please contact us through www.bibletalksrugby.org.